Ladies and gentlemen, SideStrafe back with Naval Action. And today I've got some footage featuring the Trincomalee, which I have to admit is not my favorite ship so far. It just has this problem with healing too much to one side, and it makes it really hard to get proper gun elevation. So I find myself missing quite a few shot opportunities, and I generally have to go into battle sails or lower. And sometimes I've even had to bring myself to a complete stop just to get some sort of shot off at range. Now, of course, at range, you're not doing as much damage, especially if you're firing at a larger ship. So it's not that you need that gun elevation, because you're going to want to get in closer and use the ship's speed to maybe get some good raking shots in. So maybe it's not that big of a deal, but again, I just feel like I've done more damage in other ships, especially the Surprise. Maybe that's also because when you're in a smaller ship, less people are paying attention to you, but my survivability is okay. It's just that I'm missing shot opportunities, as I already mentioned. I feel like I'll be in a turn and I'm just healing too much to, port side, for example, and I just can't get the gun where I need it. But if I stop or slow down too much, then I become a viable target for the enemy team. So it's rough. You got that speed, but shot accuracy on the move, So I am very much looking forward to the USS Constitution, which apparently doesn't have that problem. I recall discussing the matter with Ram JB, and he had mentioned the fact that the Constitution has stern chasers. Actually helps balance the ship out a little bit due to the extra weight there. The Trincomalee obviously doesn't have stern chasers, so it might be more of a problem. Now, I'm guessing that there could be other issues as well, maybe hull design, things like that. But anyways, I am just looking forward to the Constitution in general because, well, it's the USS Constitution. American bias. No. I just want to play with it, before Alpha's over. And speaking of Alpha, it is Alpha, right? This is an Alpha. So I feel like a lot of the new players coming into this game are treating this like it's some sort of release title. Like, this is the game. This is how the game's going to be. Like, they're not aware of what this game is actually going to be. And let's face it, as the game gets more popular, the word gets out there, you've got other YouTubers and streamers showcasing the game, and I think that in some cases they're overly excited about it, and they're not describing to their audience what this title is. And you have to keep in mind that this is going to be an open world game, and you're going to eventually have to buy your ships. We can compare it to EVE Online or Elite Dangerous in some ways. If you have a ship, you buy it, there's the potential for losing that in combat and having to buy a new one. I don't know how insurance is going to play in and things like that. I don't really have any knowledge of that. I don't think they've talked about it. But this isn't like World of Warships or whatever War Thunder is going to have. It's not a tier-based game or a battle rating-based game. You're not going to be going down a list, or a tech tree unlocking ships. And I think that some people feel that that is how it's going to be. Now, that's not to say that there won't be some sort of deathmatch mode like we have now, where two teams can fight outside of your normal sandbox shenanigans. But it's not going to be like grind to unlock, get XP. No, it's not that kind of game. It's not a free-to-play. They don't need to be that kind of game. Thank goodness, because I'm getting kind of tired of those games and the tactics that they use to take from our wallets. So it is nice that this is going to be more of an open world game. I'm really excited to see what Game Labs brings us. As I've said in the past, it seems like they've got a good head on their shoulders. They seem to be wanting to make the game that they actually want to play. Really small team of developers. And so far, so good. Early alpha here, and, the combat is phenomenal. We haven't even seen the new damage model, which I believe will be implemented sometime this year. That's going to have things like angling. So if your ship is at an angle, there is a chance that your cannon will bounce off the side. And even though we're not dealing with metals here, it still actually happened. The wood that they would use is so thick on the side of these ships that if you're angled, yeah, that cannonball could potentially bounce off of it. They're looking at, modeling the interiors a little bit more for damage, hitting specific compartments, being able to possibly further breach the ship's magazine and do some damage there. There's a whole thing about it in the forums, and I'll go ahead and link that in the description below because it talks about what they're doing, and it seems like it's going to be a really detailed damage model. And I think that when that's introduced, everything is going to change drastically. Like it's going to be a brand new game, because now think about all those times where you've turned your ship to kind of give the enemy a smaller profile to fire at, and you're now at an angle and they're shooting your port side angle, and in reality maybe a lot of those cannons would have bounced off, whereas currently they're not. That one feature is going to change everything. Just that one thing alone, not even discussing the other damage model features that are yet to be implemented. But people, I think, are going to have to relearn how to fight, and that's fine because it's alpha. That's when you're supposed to implement drastic changes. Beta and beyond is more so for polish. Now, of course, the current state of the game might confuse you because it feels like it's such a polished product already, and that the gameplay is so good that you think that this is the game, but it's just a small percentage, and I'm going to constantly remind people of that as new viewers come to the channel and check out content. I want to keep reminding people what this game is really going to be about. I just see so many of these free-to-play tier-based games like, War Thunder and World of Tanks and whatnot, that I think that anytime somebody sees a vehicle game, they think it's going to be like that. I mean, that's the trend now, is vehicle games are getting more popular, whether they're tanks, planes, ships, or whatever. Vehicle games are becoming a bandwagon kind of market, and I think a lot of devs are trying to jump on that to grab some coin. But they need to realize that vehicle games have been around for years within simulator genres on PC. For so many years, And this, while it's not 100% study sim or anything like that, it's a nice balance in between arcade and sim, somewhere in there, somewhere more so in the realism genre, I would say. But I think that people, again, just need to realize what this is going to be about and appreciate that fact. But anyway, moving on from that subject, I'd like to discuss how people are playing this game. Now, keep in mind it is alpha, so it's not really a big deal currently. The focus should be on testing the game, submitting feedback to the developers, bug reports, making suggestions, voting on polls in the forums and things like that. That's an ideal situation, of course, because let's face it, we do live in a world where there are more alpha and beta players and very few alpha and beta testers. That used to be a thing. People actually used to get in these to test things, but hey, it is what it is. It's your money. You're allowed to do whatever you want. But in an ideal world, we do have people that are focusing a little bit more on the feedback and whatnot. But anyways, that's not really what I want to discuss. More so how you spend your time in this alpha, because I notice a lot of people are spending far too much time in the PvE lobby, which means you're fighting AI bots. And they're very predictable. You get to a certain point where if they're lined up with you, they're not going to lead the target, and they don't use repair kits, and you're probably going to beat them all the time. Now, the thing is, you also get damage points in PvE, which means people are able to unlock ship after ship. And I use PvE to take screenshots for a lot of my thumbnails when I make a video. So I'll jump in there and just, photograph my ship or whatever. But I notice sometimes when I jump into PvE, there's huge ships in there. Like sometimes I'll jump into PvE and there's like a victory in there. I'm like, what the frack is it? Maybe he's taking a screenshot too. Okay, so maybe he's thinking like, what's this guy doing in here? Why is there a Trincomalee in here? So maybe it's the same thing. Maybe it's a YouTuber or something taking a screenshot. I don't know. But I think that's wishful thinking. I think what's actually happening is a lot of people are playing PvE to unlock the next ship. And at the end of the day, that just kind of hurts them because when they do decide to play PvP, they don't have the knowledge necessary to achieve a victory, not the ship, but an actual victory, or work well as a team. Now, as I'm saying this, I want to keep in mind that I am far from perfect at this game. I don't consider myself to even be good at it. I still have a lot to learn. I still have trouble with manual sales, but I'm enjoying that learning process. And when you do have a win against real players, it feels amazing, especially in this kind of game. But what's happening is we'll get into these matches, large matches with ships of the line, the Victory, the Bellona, the Santissima, things like that. And they'll be in the match and they just go off on their own, hard charging the enemy while everybody else is in a formation. Or they'll be out far away, sniping or something. And it's like, what are you doing? And you're trying to type to them and they're not listening and they're not communicating. Or you'll have little ships, the opposite end of the spectrum, little ships getting in the way of the bigger ships, which is something that I learned about recently even. See? And I learned about that because I play PvP. I learned through a bunch of comments, that it's the smaller ship's job to stay out of the way of the larger, less maneuverable ships. Now, yes, that's probably obvious, but there are some times where you're in a smaller ship and you're in a huge battle like Trafalgar and there's 20 people on your team and you're just sandwiched in between giant ships and you have trouble kind of getting out of your way. You go left, you're going to hit one ship. You go right, you're going to hit another. If you stop, somebody's going to, rear end you. You don't have a lot of choices, so it's like, what do? I spawn this way and I can't get out of here and nobody else is stopping even if I tell them to. So you don't have many choices, but generally, yeah, if you're in the smaller ship, get out of the way of the bigger one because they can't maneuver as well. However, even with that said, even if that is a real world rule on the sea, I will say, I'll always stick to this, people tunnel vision too much in video games, especially vehicle-based games. Whether it's a tank or a plane or a ship, whatever, people spend too much time scoped in sniper mode, whatever you want to call it, and they're not paying attention to their surroundings, and they ram into something. Don't care what size ship people are in, that is a bad habit to have. You need to pay attention to your surroundings. You need to only fire when you know that you're clear of your allies and even enemies. And you have a good shot and you can fire your broadside without colliding with something. You need to also be paying attention to your little radar thing in the lower right-hand corner. It's there so that you don't collide with other ships. That's its primary function. And I think that these things, all these things, you're just not going to learn about it. You're not going to run into these situations a lot in a PvE setting. So that's why you need to get into PvP. Now, I know some of you might think, well, I'm intimidated. I don't want to get in here. These people are good at this game. And look at it from my perspective. Put yourself in my shoes. As a YouTuber and live streamer, I share my gameplay experiences with thousands of people, right? And that has the potential to be embarrassing beyond belief. But you get over it, and you just get used to it. And I got over it years ago. It's like, look, I'm not afraid to share a loss. I'm not afraid to share a face palm, a funny moment, a screw up, if you will. It's part of being a gamer. It's not a big deal. I try to share failures as well as successes, because that's part of the learning experience for me and you as the viewer. And if I can make videos that a bunch of people watch on a regular basis of me screwing up at a game, getting beaten by better players, then you can get into a game without filming it and have a great time that you don't have to share. Now, of course, in this day and age, everybody is recording their game. A lot of people are on YouTube and Twitch, and you might get captured from time to time in a video or a stream, but it doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. Get in. Don't be intimidated by pixels on a screen. Get in there and fight. Learn how to play. You're going to screw up. I'm going to still screw up, and I'm still going to share it with you, and I'm not going to care that I screw up, because it's a video game, and at the end of the day, we walk away, we log out, we power down, and then there's real life, which is actually more important, believe it or not, even though we like to think that it's not and wish that it wasn't. It is, and it's just one of those things where it shouldn't matter. Play PvP, fight actual players, because when you win, or even do a bunch of damage, or just have some sort of crazy naval action, most satisfying thing ever. Most satisfying thing ever. And you're not going to have that in PvE against bots. Never. You're not going to say, man, that was a great bot game. That was so close. He almost had me. No, that's not going to happen. It's impossible. And if that's happening, then I don't know what you're doing wrong in PvE. But get into PvP. We need backup. Because as it is right now, there's like a handful of really good players and not enough to balance out these matches. So sometimes you'll get a horrible match where it's just like everybody on the leaderboard is on one side, just because that's how it ended up for some reason based on the ships that were chosen. And then you got a bunch of new players on the other side. And we need to kind of get more good players into these matchups so that we can have some fair fights. However, I'm not here to tell you how to play your game, the game that you've spent your money and time on. Whatever floats your boat, pun intended. But just keep in mind that there are other human beings playing with you, and they are often affected by your own actions. With that said, we all know that human beings are inherently selfish and stubborn and inconsiderate. You just walk outside for 5 minutes and you can see it, whether it's at work or school or whatever. You can see it. I don't have to tell you it. You know it. In video games, it's worse because there's no eye contact. You know, you don't have to deal with that person. You don't have to deal with the repercussions of having a body in front of you. You know, it's different. It's bad out in the real world, but it's worse in the digital. So with games, I think dealing with free-to-plays and games that kind of promote achievements or unlocking things, I think it's getting worse. We can even go back to the source of the problem, which I think if we look at some of the early Battlefield games where they started introducing unlocks, you know, unlocking new weapons and kits and things like that, it became more about how do I get that next unlock. And now more than ever we see it in these free-to-plays like World of Tanks, War Thunder, whatever. It's less about a team victory helping each other out. It's more about how do I get personal success and gain. How do I get more XP, and how do I get credits and whatever. Achievements, which usually don't mean anything in video games. In many cases, we get achievement badges that say, you got killed in this funny way. Congrats. You died. Congrats. You get achievements for dying. You know, we're rewarding failure these days. That's how kids are growing up now. Oh, yeah, fail. It's okay. What? That's not how I was raised. I don't know about you guys. But instead of thinking about, well, how are we going to get this win? How can I do the most damage? Because the damage equals money and credits in a game. And that's all that matters. Because people are addicted to this unlock system in games. Like there's some satisfaction for people to think, oh, I got to unlock. And they unlock that one thing that they've been waiting to unlock for so long. And like, okay, now I got to unlock the next thing. It's like a drug. And the developers and the publishers, they know that the addiction is the key to their financial success. And it's up to us to not give in to that and to continue to fund games that develop based on making the most money instead of making a damn good game. Of course, they have to make money to survive, but I would rather see more games developed the old ways. You know, sometimes the old ways are still the best, and I just miss being able to pay a flat fee for my game and play for hours upon hours on end. I don't mind an expansion here and there, that's fine. But gosh, I'm sick of these free-to-play BS mechanics and these carbon copy titles that are just doing what the other guy did. And I think we need a gaming revolution again. And I think it starts with games like this and Elite Dangerous and games that are just going by the old school methods. But anyways, that's of course what happens when I start talking about the games industry. Rants galore. And so I'm going to get back to the game at hand. But you can see right now we're just in cleanup mode. We've taken out the larger threats and now just working on smaller ships. Brig and Surprise, I believe. Here I was kind of going towards or against the wind, and so I was having a tough time bringing the ship around to get this broadside out, so I was just doing a few shots here and there. Not really feeling any pressure at this moment though, because like I said, bigger threats are gone, and so I just wanted to see if I can, you know, get some more damage in to help sink these guys. Some of our other ships are scattered out there, but this guy will be done soon anyway, so it doesn't even matter. He's out of kits, I think. This is also just one of those moments where you have some downtime and you can use it to focus on your maneuvers. You can use it to try to improve your sailing technique or improve your accuracy, since there aren't major threats and my health is good. I can just take my time. And, you know, sure, you can practice some of those things in a PvE situation, but if you have the downtime in the player versus player environment, then use it up. Because, as I said earlier, you don't want to spend too much time in PvE, and it's best to get into these PvP matchups, accumulate knowledge and experience from battling real players. And beyond that, nothing beats just a successful maneuver against an enemy player. You know, that successful raking shot that just obliterates their ship and crew together. It's really fantastic. I love it. And with that, I think today's conversation starter is going to be the question of, what do you see yourself doing in naval action? Do you see yourself living a life of piracy, or do you see yourself perhaps as a privateer, maybe even enlisting in military service with a nation of choice? What nation would you fight for? And what is your dream ship? What vessel do you see yourself sailing in? Is it something small, fast, maneuverable, something to perhaps harass the enemy? Or is it something larger, maybe a frigate, or even beyond that, a ship of the line? What is your ideal ship? What's actually your favorite ship? What's your dream ship? Something that you might like to actually see in this game. If you are interested in seeing the ship of your dreams in this game, then definitely check out the link in the description below. In that forum thread, you'll see a whole bunch of iconic ships listed, and then you can place your vote. The winning ships will then get narrowed down, and the devs will look at having them modeled and brought into naval action. So definitely check that out. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, this battle has a few more minutes to go, but I'm going to cut the commentary here. So I want to thank each and every one of you for joining me, and I really hope that you appreciate the naval action content. More to come. With that, I will definitely see you on the next one.